Alright guys, welcome back to Germ's Workshop. Today we're going to look at the gauge cluster for the Chevelle. So we took this apart because, as you can see, the old lens bezel has some of this clouding on it, and I tried to do a little bit of polishing on it and get that to go away, but it just wasn't going away. And for no more than it costs to order this new lens from eBay, I can't remember the exact vendor, but we ordered that new lens and we got a new gauge bezel from the parts place. I'll put that link down in the description. We went to O'Reilly's because we pulled this gauge cluster out and there weren't any bulbs or anything in the back. So we got these 1445 bulbs that go through the back of the gauge, and they had all the original sockets and everything. Guys, if you go down to O'Reilly's, most of the time they have this stuff in stock. If not, they can order it and have it for you the next day or two. So this isn't really difficult to pull out. We pulled it out of the car, and it's just got these little sheet metal screws, and the only other fastener that keeps it in place is the little nut, I guess you'd call it, or knob that goes on for the clock. So now that we got all our parts in, I already went ahead and put the bulbs in the back of it with the new sockets and everything, and we're going to get those wired up, and that way we'll have gauge cluster lights and everything. The fuel sending unit will be hooked up to the fuel gauge. We're not going to have a speedometer cable hooked up right now, but we'll work on that down the road. So here we go. We're going to put this all back together. Alright, so I'm going to take these parts and put them in this little cup, in this lid for the spray can, so that we don't lose them, all these little screws. Then we'll take this old bezel and remove it, get rid of all the clips, and make sure that I know that where that's oriented. There's the little one. Here's why we ordered the new gauge cluster, because it looked gross, and you can see it was cracked right there. So we'll put a new one on there and it'll look nice going in this dash. So it looks a lot different without the lens on there. And this just comes off. Be careful not to lose these little lenses. They just go on there and then press up against the tubes. So these light tubes is where the sockets for the lights go in, and the light bulb shines through these individual tubes. And then here's your sockets and bulbs for the gauge cluster itself. So one thing I just noticed was in the new gauge bezel, it's got these little grooves here, and there's a piece of foam that goes between there and the gauge cluster, and that keeps everything from kind of rattling around when you're running down the road. So we'll make sure and salvage those and keep those in the new gauge cluster. There's just tiny little pieces of foam like that. Probably have to use some sort of adhesive or something to get them back in there. That looks like all the pieces off of there. also, when you're looking for how to wire up your fuel gauge, your sending unit, you want to make sure and get these on the right sides. So this one is for the positive, and this one goes to your sending unit. Don't get those mixed up. I don't know what will happen, but it can't be good. But oh yeah, I wanted to show you the back of those. So these are your sockets for your gauge lights, and it's just a single wire, and it's not real difficult. Okay, so we're gonna put this new lens on. Alright guys, one thing I noticed here was the old gauge cluster has a hole for the clock adjustment, so you can set your clock. Well, the new one doesn't. So I'm gonna tape this off. Be super careful because this is just acrylic, it's not glass. And we're gonna drill a hole through there. It's not gonna be perfect because it doesn't have this, it's kind of at an angle so that it seats in there. But we gotta have a hole because we gotta be able to adjust our clock. So I'm going to tape that off and drill that, locate it, and figure out how we're going to do that. So the old hole is 193. So I'll get a drill bit that corresponds with that size, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I got some blue tape that I've covered this acrylic up with. And I'm going to place the original lens over there. Make sure that it's exactly where we want it. And make a hole, make a mark with our pin. And I got a drill bit, that's number 9, and I believe it's 195. We measured our hole at 193, so that should be good. We're just going to take our time, go real slow on this. There we go. All right, didn't crack or anything, didn't split out. Test fit that. Looks pretty good to me. Now we'll put the new bezel on. Oh, we gotta put those pieces of foam back in there, don't we? Alright, so I put those pieces of foam back in there, and used some double-sided tape to hold it in place, because I know as soon as I flip this thing over, they were going to fall out. I didn't have any adhesive, like weather strip adhesive to use, but this pin also locates on the top of the lens and kind of helps everything to locate in place. So I'm going to put that on. Alright, so I got the rest of this thing seated in here. I'm going to go ahead and put some of these screws in. I'm just going to go super easy because we don't want to crack this brand new bezel. Alright guys, so we got those fasteners all torqued down. You don't have to smoke those. Remember, this bezel is just plastic. So it's, if you get too overzealous with your ratchet, you're just going to strip those out and cause yourself more problems. So I'm excited the way this new lens looks and the way the bezel looks. We got lights in the back, and we're going to get this in the car and get it wired up. And as always, remember, if this video has been helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember, 10 in, 10 out.